Sexual assault is evil and not women's fault. Now, we often hear the idea from cowardly men that, oh, she was wearing this, she was acting in this way, obviously she wanted it, obviously she deserved it, and this is how we maintain our society, to basically punish the women who are acting slutty, who are acting in this manner, so that other women won't do it. Make an example of those women. And those women do not at any rate deserve that, and the people who say this are cowardly, whether they're men or women, or even if the victim is a man or a woman or anywhere in between. What we have to look at is the human being, not what our carnal urges dictate we do to them. Because once you start following your carnal urges, once you start justifying your carnal urges and saying, okay, this is me assaulting them, is the only way we can maintain our society, you're allowing your lesser form as a human being to control your higher form. You're essentially making yourself more material and basically trying to make the victim more material and engage in this terrible act of assault. But in truth, those who treat human beings as material and don't treat them as human beings but treat them as something just to be used, whatever excuse they plaster onto it, are really the more materialistic, are really the more cruel, are really the more foolish, are really the more perpetrators of destroying our society. It's not the victim's fault. It's never the victim's fault when it comes to sexual assault. It's always the one doing it. No matter how, even if the victim was completely nude and just walking down the street, that doesn't give anyone the right to basically just hop on them or do whatever they want to them. And, excuses are made later. Excuses are made in the mind to satisfy the intellect for a certain amount of time in order for us to satisfy that carnal urge if we're the perpetrator. But what it comes down to is really looking at why a human being should be brought down to the level of material. And the truth is, a human being should never be brought down to the level of material. Because once you bring down a human being to the level of material, you are making yourself somebody who feeds on material. Somebody who does not value life, does not value humanity, and does not value society. So you can't use any excuse in order to perpetrate the act that you're trying to perpetrate if you're somebody who's trying to commit a sexual assault or does commit a sexual assault. Now, as somebody who lives in the United States of America, our sexual culture, I guess you could say, is different than maybe third world countries and countries that are very divided as far as genders are pressed away from each other and kind of kept apart until they marry and then they can have sex. But I found that the further genders are away from one another, the more there is a misunderstanding between them. And this is why I think it's a mistake to separate males and females in school, males and females in society until they get married. I think it's a terrible mistake to keep us away from each other until we marry and then basically have to have sex or are expected to have sex. Because I think that we start to understand each other, very early on. And it's better that we understand each other, as men and women understanding each other early on, mixed in grade school, mixed in middle school, high school, and college, so that we can start to really realize that each other are humans, and this is how we relate to one another. And this doesn't even just apply to sexual assault victims or perpetrators. This applies to everything. People should mix. People should try to understand each other. People should take in other cultures and allow themselves to be kind of aware of how the different operations of society work. Regardless of if your society believes one way, be aware of other societies. Now, if you're a perpetrator of sexual assault, you are basically, you're a piece of shit. And I've never met anybody that has really come back from being a sexual assaulter, I guess you say. Though I don't know many. I don't know any. But as far as, the research that I've done, I've never met somebody that's come back from that and just been the best person ever. When you're taking a piece of your soul away when you sexually assault somebody. When you sexually assault somebody, you're basically bringing down your own soul's vibration. your own spirit's vibrations. Spirit is life force, soul is the connection that you have with everything else, and it is a wound that you have for the rest of your life, and it is a wound that your victim will have for the rest of their life. It is a wound that they may never get past. And it's not their fault. No matter how they dressed, even if they walked down the street nude, no matter what they said, no matter what kind of behavior they were behaving as, it doesn't matter. It's all about consent. Now, a lot of people say, male or female, but mostly male, say, well, she was in my house already, man. She was already in my bedroom. Hell, I was even on top of her, and she was okay with that. And then when it got down to it, and we were having sex, she said no and get off me. And then, but we were already having sex, what the hell? That is not an excuse. When a human being tells you to stop, when a human being tells you it's not okay anymore, or to basically just stop whatever activity you're doing, you must listen to that human being if you two are engaged in a mutually sharing act of either passion or hell, even if you're just having fun, playing a game, whatever. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If a human being tells you, okay, they don't want to do this anymore, they don't want to play anymore, then you're done. You don't do it anymore. And a lot of rapists I've seen on documentaries, and as far as the research I've done, as far as stories that I've seen, justify it by saying, okay, well, we were already engaged, so I have the right to finish. You don't have the right to finish. You don't have the right to do anything that another human being doesn't want you to do to them. When you're engaged with another human being and you're doing something to them, with them, then you don't have a right to continue when they say stop. So, it's very important to realize this, even as people like me who have never committed sexual assault, and certainly have no plan to realize that you must respect a human being's not just opinion or feedback, but demand for you to stop doing whatever you're doing to them or with them. You have to respect the other human being that you're engaging in any activity with. And that's important for us to ingrain in our minds so that we don't end up doing something monstrous, so that we don't end up bringing our partner, our girlfriend, boyfriend, doesn't matter, down to the level of material, and thus taking out a piece of our soul because we identified with material ourselves and followed our carnal urges. Ingrain that in your minds. A human being must be respected. A human being must be listened to, and if you're doing anything about a human being, listen to them when they say stop. But anyway, this has been a video about sexual assault. It's been a little bit difficult, and this is just my opinion. And when I say sexual assault, I use women in general as as being the victim in this case. It can be men, it can be anybody along the spectrum in between. That's completely fine. Any victim doesn't, deserve, no matter what they did, to be sexually assaulted, and certainly deserves to be heard when they say stop. So, thank you very much for watching. If you thought this video was, I wouldn't say that, I don't think anybody really liked this video. I would say if you thought this video was, important, if you thought this needed to be said, hit that thumbs up down there. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to shoot it down in the comment section below. And I will see all of you in the future. You all have a great one, and be sure to listen to one another.